There was a time when the name Agnes Morelli filled European concert halls. Before she became Sister Agnes Marie. Before she traded velvet gowns for a habit. Before the silence. She had once been the girl with golden hands. The year was 2025. And deep in the quiet countryside of Northern Ireland stood St. Brigid's Convent. An ancient stone structure wrapped in ivy and mist. The world had largely forgotten the convent, much like it had forgotten many things that didn't fit the modern age-like silence. Prayer and the worn wisdom of those who no longer shouted to be heard. Inside its cool, echoing halls lived Sister Agnes, 78 years old, quiet, dignified, and largely invisible. She had been there for over 5 decades, arriving shortly after her 21st birthday and never leaving. She was known for making herbal teas, teaching catechism to orphaned girls, and tending the gardens behind the chapel. No one knew she once played for royalty. No. One remembered the summer night in Paris in 1967 when she brought a roaring crowd. 2 tiers with a piece she composed herself. No one remembered him. Asterisk, asterisk. She was just 21 when her world collapsed. Just hours after her biggest performance, her fiancé, Michael Callahan, a war photographer, was killed in a bombing in Beirut. His body was never recovered. She waited a year, then 2. Then the letters stopped. One morning, she walked into the small church in Florence, where she had played her first piece as a girl, and she asked the priest what it meant to disappear. He smiled and handed her a Bible. Weeks later, she joined the convent. She never played again, not a single note. Music, she said, belonged to a life she buried in the past. But the music didn't die. It lived silently in her hands. Asterisk, asterisk. In the spring of 2025, excitement shook the convent. St. Brigid's had been chosen to host the diocese's Global Faith and Talent Gala, a prestigious event bringing together dignitaries from every corner of the Catholic world, including representatives from the Vatican, the United Nations, and even a few prominent media figures. The gala would be broadcast live. For many at the convent, this was the most important thing to ever happen in their lifetimes. Plans began immediately: flowers, architecture, food, speeches, and music. Father Lucien Delacroix, the 32-year-old French priest who recently became the director of cultural affairs for the diocese, was tasked with curating the entire experience. He had ideas. He wanted youth, innovation, modernity, wrapped in reverence. He wanted the world to see that the church still had talent. Asterisk, asterisk. At the planning meeting, Sister Agnes, seated quietly near the end of the table, spoke softly. "Will there be room for music from the sisters?" Lucien smiled. "We have selected a young pianist from Milan, Layla Novak. She's spectacular, only 21. Is already a conservatory graduate." Agnes nodded slowly. "I understand. I only wondered. Perhaps I might." Lucien cut in, kindly but firmly. "Sister, I respect your passion, but this is a televised event. We want to inspire the next generation. I'm sure you understand." He moved on. Agnes said nothing more. But something in her chest stirred. That night, she returned to the old chapel, where the convent's piano, a battered but beautiful Steinway, sat under a faded dustcloth. She hadn't uncovered it in decades. Her heart pounded as she pulled off the sheet. The keys were yellowed with age. One was chipped. The strings inside were still intact. She sat down, placed her fingers gently on the keys, closed her eyes, and played. The first bar of a piece she had never shown anyone. A piece she wrote the night she found out Michael was gone. Asterisk, asterisk. Layla Novak arrived 5 days before the event. She was brilliant, indeed. Her fingers were sharp, polished, technically flawless, but something about her seemed frayed. It's not nerves exactly, more like emptiness. Agnes noticed it when she offered her tea. Layla barely smiled. "You're very gifted," Agnes said. Layla looked at her with tired eyes. "Gifted doesn't mean fulfilled." Agnes tilted her head. "It can." Later that night, Agnes heard her practicing. Layla played La Campanella at breathtaking speed, but it was hollow. mechanical, beautiful, but bloodless. She was a machine, and she knew it. Asterisk. Asterisk the night before the gala, Layla disappeared. Her manager panicked. The broadcast crew scrambled. Lucien was furious. At 3 a.m., they found her in the garden behind the chapel, weeping quietly under the moonlight. "I can't do it," she said. "Everyone wants me to play perfectly, but I've never felt more broken." Lucien begged her to reconsider. She refused. Then Layla asked Agnes, "Why did you stop playing?" Agnes looked away. "Because I loved someone more than music. And when I lost him, I thought music was gone too. But I was wrong. Music waited. It never left." Lila asked her something no one had in 50 years. "Will you play for me?" Agnes led her to the chapel. She sat at the old Steinway and played. Not loudly, not perfectly, but truthfully. Layla cried. Asterisk, asterisk, the next day, hundreds of guests filled the grand cathedral hall. Cameras lined the perimeter. Reporters whispered. Choirs performed. Violinists enchanted. But the final act, the emotional centerpiece, was missing. Leela stood in the wings, frozen. Lucien whispered harshly, "You're on in 5 minutes." She didn't move. Then she turned to Agnes and whispered, "Play it." Lucien's jaw dropped. "No, absolutely not." She wasn't approved. "This is live broadcast," but the bishop overheard. "Sister Agnes, were you once Agnes Morelli?" The bishop had seen her play when he was 10 years old. Lucien paled. The bishop nodded. "Let her play." Asterisk, asterisk, Sister Agnes walked onto the stage. The room murmured, "A nun." She sat at the piano, hands trembling, then dashed silence. She began to play. Not Bach, not Beethoven. She played her own piece. It began like a prayer, soft, painful. The first notes felt like someone opening a diary they swore never to read again. The melody rose into aching nostalgia. The loss of first love. It's the burden of memory. It's the strength of letting go. She played with grace, but not perfection. Her hands missed a note, but the emotion never missed. Cameras zoomed in on her face. Tears ran down her cheeks. And then, just as the piece began to resolve, she whispered one word. "Michael." Light. Then silence. And in that silence, the audience rose. First a few, then all. Tears. Applause. Roaring. Thunderous love. Not for fame, but for truth. Asterisk, asterisk. The performance became the most watched video in Catholic broadcast history. News outlets called her the piano nun. Musicians around the world reacted. People who hadn't gone to church in years replayed her performance in search of something they'd forgotten. Lila, deeply moved, quit her label and started composing her own music again. Agnes was invited to perform on international stages. She refused. Music, she said, was never for them. It was for him. And I finally played it. Asterisk, asterisk, 1 year later, Sister Agnes died peacefully in her sleep. Her hands folded around a worn photo of Michael. At her funeral, Leela played her song. It was renamed The Last Silence. And as the final notes echoed through the same chapel where Agnes had played her last piece, the world listened, not to a nun, not to a pianist, but to the sound of love refusing to die. Asterisk, asterisk.